Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope everybody is doing well. So, unfortunately, I won't be able to teach this in person, and that's why I'm teaching it online. And I really appreciate you watching this video. Please watch it very carefully, as in person. I understand the level of concentration is different, but inshallah, I'll try my best to imitate my regular teaching style and not bore you out in this. But I'm always available for questions through email or whatnot. So we were discussing, and since there has been a gap of a week in between, um, I would like to just quickly go over what we've been discussing in general overall. So what we've been discussing so far are what we call al-mushtaqat. Al-mushtaqat. What are mushtaqat? There are derived nouns. Derived nouns. So number one, they are nouns. That's very important because there is a very important distinction between how we treat verbs and how we treat nouns and the way the i'rab is expressed and things of that nature. So it's a very important distinction to know right off the bat. And then the second part is that they're derived, meaning they are a subset, or they are pulled from something else. In any case, we were looking at two patterns from the mushtaqat. So we discussed that there are quite a few patterns, right? We discussed that there is the ismul fa'il, there is ismul maf'ul, there is ismul dharf, ismul ala, ismul tafdil, and as-sifa al-mushabbaha. Okay. And I won't write them out because these can easily be found in the slides before. So where I talk about the mushtaqat, I list out these categories. For last week, we discussed, or the last time we had class, we discussed ismul fa'il. Ismul fa'il. Ismul fa'il. Please keep in mind, this is not the same thing as saying the fa'il, al-fa'il. In Nahwu, there's a very important distinction between the two. Right now, I'm talking about ismul fa'il. I will not delve into the specifics of uh, what a fa'il is versus what an ismul fa'il is right now. But we will definitely address that in a later video, inshallah, or later class. So, ismul fa'il, we discussed, is you put a word on a certain pattern. You put a word on, like, so say you have the ma'khad or nasara. Now, ma'khad just means that you have the root letters. So you have the word nasara, right? Or nasrun. Let's put it, this is a verbal noun, right? It just means uh, help, right? Or to help, better yet. And now to take this nasrun and say the one who helped, how would you do this? So you take nasrun and you convert it into something that's on the pattern of fa'ilun, which would basically be nasirun, right? And this can be now you can play around with this word by adding the dual suffixes, by adding the plural suffixes. So if you add the dual suffixes, it would turn into nasirani, and then you also have nasiruna. And then depending on the state, sometimes, so if you have mansub in dual, it would turn into nasiraini, right? And in the case of plural, if you have mansub or majrur, it would be nasirina. And this is for the male. For the female, the details are also on the list, but this is just a short recap of that. We also discussed ismul maf'ul, which is, you can say, the kind of opposite side of the coin, which means the object the action was done upon, right? So the object the action was done upon. Great. What did that look like? So it's taking the same nasrun, putting on the pattern of maf'ulun, We have mansurun, mansurun, right? Someone or something that is the object of help. Some in short words, somebody who's been helped. Somebody who's been helped. Okay. And the same suffixes, meaning the dual suffixes, mansurani, mansuraini, and plural suffixes, mansuruna and mansurina, can be played with as well. So this is what we discussed up until last week. This week we will be discussing ismul dharf and ismul ala, right? The noun of time and place, and as well as the noun of usage, or the noun of a tool, al ala, right? So that's where we'll shift into the slides that we've been holding. Excuse me. So this is lecture 9. It can be found on Canvas easily, I believe, under week 15. So if you would like to follow along there, you can download it. But this is the slide for the week. So now we've discussed that. Okay, so I can put words on a pattern, meaning fa'ilun or maf'ulun, and give it a certain meaning, right? So I have a word and I put on the pattern and I give it a certain meaning, which is a very handy tool to do. Now I know the structure or the pattern by which I can say, okay, he is the doer of that action, or he is the one who the action was done upon, right? Although this is regarding thulathi mujarrad, right? I have to make this distinction, or there is a caveat that right now we've learned the mushtaqat for thulathi mujarrad, or the ismul fa'il and ismul maf'ul for thulathi mujarrad. There are mushtaqat for the thulathi mazid fi, for the ruba'i mujarrad, ruba'i mazid fi, right? So there are mushtaqat for them also. The good news is, although the pattern slightly is different, the concept overall is practically the same, right? So some other mushtaqat that we can learn, and we will be doing this one today, is ismul dharf first. Now, what these represent, right? So if you look at you have one box, and it's extending out into either one box here or multiple boxes. What that means is, if you have like ismul dharf, it has two patterns, right? It has two patterns that are used, and I'll talk about when which pattern is used for ismul dharf. Ismul ala has three patterns, right? Whereas Ismul fa'il only had one pattern, fa'ilun. That was the pattern, that's it. Ism maf'ul had only one pattern, maf'ulun, that's it. Ismul ala has, for example, three patterns. These are all used. And Ismul dharf has two patterns. Those are used as well. Ismul tafdil has one pattern, right? So the number of boxes represents how many patterns you have for that particular mushtaq. Ismul dharf. Okay. The noun of time and place. Excuse me. A bit slow, my computer, I know. Okay. So, what is the noun of time and place? So, in very short, so if I have a ma'khad, like for example, um, let's say masma'un, right? So I have sami'a, right? Sami'a means to hear, right? And I want to say the place or time of hearing. So this is where I would put something on this pattern. Another example is abada. Abada means to worship, right? And I want to say the place of worship. Now, happens to be that this is a very um, uh, common word we use. So I put the word on the pattern of maf'alun, or in a certain case, maf'ilun. So, uh, and I'll talk about exactly. I put it at the bottom of the page when exactly the patterns are used. But let's go through the slide quickly. So, number one, there is no female form for this noun. If you remember in Ismul Fa'il and Ismul Maf'ul, there was a female form. For the Ismul Dharf, there is no female form. This tells you how to make it, how you would go about constructing the ism al-dharf. It's not really complicated. Just take the ma'khad and put it on the pattern of maf'alun or maf'ilun, right? Now, this last point right here is a bit important, right? So let's take the example. Um, let's take an example in our sheet right here. So, as you remember, Thalathi Mujarrad has six abwab, right? So the uh, pattern sets, we call them pattern sets for Thalathi Mujarrad. In total, there are six. Okay. When it comes to Ismul Dharf, four of them, so four fall on pattern of maf'alun. Okay. Four of them fall on the pattern of maf'alun. And the other two, they fall on pattern of maf'ilun with a kasra on the ain, right? Very subtle difference. So, what are the two that fall on the pattern of? Let's maybe create some space here. Maybe a little more would be good. So, which ones are the ones that fall on the pattern of maf'alun? So, anything on the pattern of nasara, right? Yansuru, right? I will not add the mudari. I expect you to pick up the pattern or the mudari pattern, depending on what I give in the Maudi, right? So, for example, nasara, for example, sami'a, fataha, and then karuma. These four, the ismul dharf will be on the pattern of maf'alun. So, if I were to take, I already did nasara, or let's take it right here. So if I want to put this on the pattern of the time or place. So notice how I say time or place. So it's a dual purpose mushtaq. This ismul dharf, and it's something really beautiful that depending on the context, it can mean either the time or it can mean the place, right? The place or time, something happened. So mansarun would be the time or the place the help occurred. So nasara, and now I want to put on the ism al-dharf pattern. This would just simply be mansarun, right? Mas ma'un, right? And so forth and so on. I don't need to do the other two. I'm sure you can pick up the pattern there. When it comes to this, the other two patterns here that are on the pattern that are maf'ilun, mind you, this is for ismul dharf, right? Maybe we should bold that out. Ismul dharf, right? A little background also on what dharf means. Dharf is literally like a container. That's the literal meaning of the word, and that happens to be because any action that's done is done within the containment of space and time, right? Dharf is time or place, right? In other words, space and time. So any action that's done for us at least is going to be done within the confines or within the restrictions of space and time. So that's a little background of Ismul Dharf. Now, the two patterns that fall on the pattern of Maf'ilun, they are number one, excuse me, it's Daraba, meaning Daraba yadribu, Daraba, and then Hasiba, meaning Hasiba yahsibu. So these two patterns, any word that falls on these two patterns, their ismul dharf will fall on this maf'ilun pattern. So the ismul dharf would look like, for example, madribun, madribun, right? Mahsibun. Now I do have to say here something important. This is not a hard and fast rule. It is very possible that you can have a word on these two, daraba and hasiba patterns, and their small zarf looks actually like the first one, maf'alun, right? And that is totally okay. Um, you have these two patterns of ism al but there is some flexibility, right? And an example I would like to give just to illustrate that is, for example, the word sajada yasjudu. So sajada yasjudu, you would expect, which means to prostrate, right? Sajada, you would expect the because sajada yasjudu is on the pattern of nasara yansuru, the first one here, right? So you would expect that the ism al-zarf would be on the pattern of mansarun or masjadun. However, we don't call it a masjad. We call it a masjid, right? We call the place where sujud is done the masjid, even though it's on the pattern of nasara yansuru, which I put here, which technically should have fell on the pattern of maf'alun, masjadun, but it fell on the pattern of maf'ilun, right? This is just to show that you can have there are these cases. But taking a survey of the language, we typically find that anything on the pattern of daraba or hasiba will fall on this maf'ilun pattern versus the one on top. So this is basically how ismul dharf works. And to translate this, this would be the time or place the hitting took place, right? For madribun, the hitting took place. Okay, so that you have now the ismul dharf. I put down the pattern, the table for ismul dharf, because you will also have the duals and then the plurals as well. Excuse me. Okay, so if you take a look at this table right here, so you can see the wahid, the mufrad, the singular ma'badun, ma'badan. This is ma'badun is rafa, nasab ma'badan, and then the ma'badan is the jar. And in the tathniya, you have ma'badani, ma'badaini, ma'badaini. No surprise there. I've highlighted, or you not highlighted, I've outlined this Jama' portion in red because this is a very interesting case. And we'll see, I'll tell you why. But just for the sake of just seeing this, take a look at how the Jama' is being constructed. Ma'abidu, ma'abida, ma'abida. Okay. There's some very weird things going on, which I'll show you in the next slide. But this is how the Jama' is constructed. Now, right off the bat, the way this Jama' is constructed, as you can see, if you remember the difference between Jama' Salim and Jama' Mukassar. Jama' Salim was where the structure or the frame of that word is retained, and Jama' Mukassar is where that frame is broken. So this is the frame, Ma'bad. This is the frame. Now I can see the smack dab in the middle right here after the ain before the ba. the f- I have an alif. I broke that frame. So this cannot be by definition a sound plural. This has to be the other one, which is the broken plural. So just a point there. Now we will discuss a few things that are interesting. Number one, plural does not end in waw nun like muslimuna, ya nun like muslimina, or alif ta, which is the typically the suffix that you add to jama' muannath, the plural feminine. Point number one. The second point is the last letter does not have a tanween, right? So ma'badun, ma'badan, ma'badin, that has tanween, the mufrad. But ma'abidu, I have a dhamma without a tanween. Quite strange. I have a dhamma without a tanween. I have a fatha without a tanween. And then the last and final point, which typically trips up a lot of people, is that even the majrur state has a fatha. Now I want to go back and show you because this is a very easy point a lot of people miss or they don't analyze carefully. So look at this. The nasab ma'abida, right? Right here. Ma'abidu rafa dhamma rafa. Okay, makes sense. Nasab fatha ma'abida. Okay, nasab typically has fatha anyways. And now jar. and ma'abida. This is not a mistake. It's not that it should be ma'abidi or something. This is really the case, right? You have a fatha in halatul jar, and this is why I kept stressing earlier on that if you start to make simple attributions and start to say that rafa equals dhamma, nasab equals fatha, jar equals kasra, you will stumble a lot very soon. So that's a very interesting point. Now let's try to understand a little. There's actually a lot of detail behind this, and the more deeper you dig, the more satisfactory the answers you'll get. But at a high level, I'll try to explain what's going on exactly here. Okay, so I put this slide here called the pitfalls of overgeneralization. So, so now in this example, the pitfalls of overgeneralization. Excuse me, I just had somebody enter the room. So it is mentioned by Sherlock. It's a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. Insensibly, one begins to twist facts to suit theories instead of theories to suit facts. What does this mean? Why did I bring this up? To show you actually that in the case of the ism al-dharf, what happened was that a lot of theories that we had in mind, a lot of models of what we had in mind, how they work, the ism al-dharf and things like that, how things should have tanween, how the jar should have a kasra, they're all broken at once, right? And the reason why that happens is because we've made a simple, conclusion in our mind that this equals that and that should equal this, right? But the problem is that this is we basically overgeneralized. We applied the paintbrush too liberally, where it did not suit for us to have that color. As you can see, I have this slide showing colors for that reason. So now that we have more data, now we can go back and reformulate in our mind, okay, that there are these cases also which do not fit the model that we had in our mind so far, right? I won't get a lot into this, but you have this kind of has to do with deductive versus inductive reasoning. I'm not here to teach a class on critical thinking, but this is just a very important point because this is typically a point of fluctuation when a person is studying Arabic. Sorry, not a fluctuation. It's an inflex point. This is what I'm talking about when a person is studying. So now to dig a little deeper as to what's going on. So number one, noun plurals will end in the alif ta, waw nun, ya nun if they are sound plurals, right? Sound plurals do that. That's why. And those are jama' salim. But however, if you have the case of the jama' mukassar, right, then you don't have a model for them, right? So it doesn't have to be the case that a plural ends in alif nun, waw nun, excuse me, ya nun or alif ta. That's the case for sound plurals, but we're not dealing with sound plurals anymore. We're dealing with broken plurals. Broken plurals have multiple patterns, have a lot of patterns, right? So, just to quickly illustrate this, perhaps on the iPad. So, in our case, we've seen that, for example, Salimun, right? The plural will end up definitely in Salimuna, right? And we can predict this. However, in the case of when you have a broken plural, right? Broken plural doesn't have a one size fit model. One size fits model. There are many um, uh, patterns for the broken plural, and I would discuss this with the word bahrun. Right, bahrun has a pattern of buhurun, abhurun, biharun. These are all plurals of the word bahrun. Right, so the broken plural, in short, what I'm trying to get to is the broken plural has a lot. Right, so That's the answer to the first question, that a plural does not have to end by necessity in waw, nun, ya, nun, or alif ta. It can have a totally different structure because it's what we call a broken plural. Now, the second, or the I believe the second and third points, both of these, I've clubbed them in this one. So this is the answer to the first objection that I raised, and this is the answer to the second and third objections which I've raised. So the first one was that, okay, it doesn't have a tanween. Why does it not have a tanween? It's not normal. If you see a noun and it doesn't have a tanween, it doesn't look normal, right? You've probably been seeing everything in nouns that have tanweens, unless it's like a dual or unless it's like a plural, uh, whatever. You've typically been seeing tanween on the on a noun. Okay, so, and number two, why it has a fatha in the state of jar also. So this is a special class of nouns, actually, right? We call them mamnu' min as-sarf, غير منصرف, indeclinable. There's a whole. This is a very lengthy discussion. Not the For our point, right, is that I'll tell you this right now. There are some words that when they fall on the pattern of not well, a word. Let's put it this way: a word that falls on the pattern of mafa'ilu, afa'ilu, mafa'ilu, they express their Arab in different ways. Number one, what one part of that expression is that they do not carry a tanween, and number two is that in the state of jar, they express that jar through a fatha, right? So this is a special class of nouns that has this special way of expressing themselves, right? So this is the case. I'm gonna go ahead and pause the video here, and I believe this much. This will be the first part of the video. I'll try my best to have the other uploaded, but inshallah, this is the first part of that of today's lesson, inshallah.